Well, good Saturday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Brian Briggs here in the NBC 10 Fox 14 studios. And we promised you that we'd come back at the top of the hour to give you yet another update on Hurricane Delta and what it's currently doing across the Arklamis. At least right now, I'm going to just kind of dive right into the basics here and just give you a general overview of the winds, the rain, and everything in between. I can tell you about some of those damage reports as well. Some of them are starting to trickle in here, as well as power outage reports. So let's get started, though, at least with an overview of what we're dealing with here. And again, this is per the 10 o'clock advisory, so would not be shocked to see if Delta has weakened now to a tropical storm at this time frame, but at least the last report showing that it was still holding at Category 1 hurricane strength as it moves through our area. I just want to point this out. Look at this satellite imagery that we are seeing here. Delta is just being torn apart by some of the wind shear that we have off towards our west and some of the drier air as well. And it's really taking apart that convection. You're seeing this on our infrared satellite imagery, which indicates cloud top temperatures. And when you're seeing those reds and those darker oranges going away, that indicates cloud tops are warming, which generally indicates that the storm is overall weakening. Nonetheless, though, we are feeling those impacts across the Arklamis at this time, especially with those winds starting to pick up across our area here. And here are sustained winds. I want to point this out. Natchez is coming in at a sustained wind at 39 miles per hour. This is the highest reading that we've seen so far, and not shocking too, considering that they are the furthest south and east, considering they are right in that prime location for some of those stronger tropical storm force winds here. Generally along the I-20 corridor, we're seeing anywhere from 18-mile-an-hour winds in Ruston to 26-mile-an-hour winds in Vicksburg. Here in the Twin Cities, though, a little bit of a higher wind that we're picking up here. 32-mile-an-hour sustained winds at this time. So if you've noticed those breezes really picking up across the Twin Cities, you're not wrong. We're seeing those higher wind readings coming in. Winds starting to pick up across southern Arkansas, too. Generally, we're light per the last update here, but we're seeing generally in the 15 to 20-mile-per-hour sustained wind range. So not shocking as Delta Center continues to get closer to our area. You can see that it is just south of Grant Parish there and continues to move north. I should say Wind Parish. That is Wind Parish. So again, this will continue to move north and east through the course of the morning here, and generally it's going to bring the stronger winds with it. When I say that, generally the winds that we're seeing right now will be the strongest winds that we see through the course of the system. However, folks, especially further to the north, will start to see those winds increasing, but generally we're staying in the tropical storm range. I believe we're done with the hurricane force winds. Now, that being said, maybe some of our southernmost parishes could be dealing with maybe a few brief hurricane force wind gusts. And again, that generally spans from about Wind Parish to LaSalle, Catahoula, Concordia, and maybe even as far north as Grant, Caldwell, Franklin, and Tensas parishes at this time. But as you can see, Delta Center continues to get closer to us at this time, and that will bring those somewhat stronger winds closer to our area as we go through the course of the next couple hours or so. So again, folks, this is our time frame that we're going to continue to see Delta's winds move through our area, generally from now till about maybe 3, 4 in the morning. So we'll start to see those winds moving through. So kind of want to zoom out here. You can see this wind field is fairly expansive here and still covers a good chunk of southern Louisiana as well. But we're starting to see less of those blues and some of those less hotter colors on our screen here, which would indicate that those winds starting to slow down here. Although, wow, we had a really interesting update there. And see a higher concentration of some of those stronger winds. So gusts, let's zoom in on this real quick. I know that was kind of an expanded view, but gusts really starting to pick up here. Now we're starting to see a 54-mile-per-hour wind gust in Natchez. We have a 51-mile-per-hour wind gust here in Monroe. So we're starting to see some of those stronger winds, 41 miles per hour in Vicksburg, 37 in Ruston, and generally closer to Delta Center. That's where we can still see some of those 60, even maybe possibly a 70-mile-per-hour gust as the center continues to get closer to our area and eventually moves through mainly the eastern, I would say, further the southern and eastern half of our area. So nonetheless, though, we're starting to see gusty winds also occurring in southern Arkansas, and folks up there also reporting some power outages. Now, I also want to I'll get more on that in just a second here. We are starting to hear more reports of more power going out across the Arklamis, especially across our southern and eastern parishes. Also includes Ouachita Parish as well. We have those numbers starting to climb. So I will dive into those details in just a second, but generally winds wind speeds are increasing, but as mentioned, the system continues to weaken here. And we should be generally starting to see the winds slowly subside over the next couple hours or so. Looks like we may have had a little bit of a power bump that has bumped our live storm tracker Doppler radar, at least briefly offline. We'll investigate that in just a second, but if it were up, it would show that we do have quite a bit of precipitation falling across mainly the good chunk of the Arclimus here. You're noticing the flashing green boxes. These are flash flood warnings across our area, and these go into effect until about 3:15 in the morning. So very, very heavy rainfall has been occurring, especially across our southern and eastern sections. I know some folks, especially near Alexandria, closer to the top of the 10 p.m. newscast, were showing close to about 8 inches of rain. Looks like our live storm tracker Doppler radar is back online. So showing very heavy rainfall falling were some of those stronger winds. So again, folks, I think right now what we might do is just stay on air here for a little bit as some of these stronger winds. I know we mentioned generally cutting it at the top of the hour, but as things kind of move through the heart of our area, I think we'll probably stay on through maybe the next hour or so as some of the core of the stronger activity starts to move through, seeing higher wind gusts as well and heavier rain returns. So generally, I think we'll stay on for the next hour or so. Just going to continue to give you the latest updates on things. We'll kind of cycle through what we've been going through for each of these cut-ins here, but I want to focus back to some of these wind gusts again. Per the latest update, 51 mile per hour wind gust has been recorded here in the Twin Cities. Again, Natchez 54. And again, those folks generally along our southernmost parishes and eastern parishes will be seeing those higher wind gusts. A little bit less activity as you move further north, but not shocking considering that they're a little bit farther away from the center. So I want to zoom this out again. This is kind of the larger view of the whole state of Louisiana, at least. You can see where those stronger wind gusts are. Really starting to hear the wind picking up here in the West Monroe studios at this time as those higher wind gusts start to filter into our area. You're still seeing that we do have a pretty good swath of wind still off to our south at this time. So, okay, I'm going to go back this up to actual sustained winds here. I want to look at this more of an Arclimus view here. You're seeing the blues here. That represents generally tropical storm force winds. At least that's what it would entail here, as Natchez is in those kind of bluish colors. So again, as you can see, wind really starting to wrap around Delta's center here as it is just outside of our area. It's coming into the area of Wynn and LaSalle parishes at this time. So again, sustained winds of about 30 to 35 miles per hour are occurring, especially across our further south locations. But you're seeing, even here in the Twin Cities, we're picking up 36-mile-an-hour sustained winds at this time. So very, very windy and very, very rainy as well as these winds continue to push through. I'm going to step off the screen here. I'm going to continue to talk with you and give you kind of some of the updates on what we're looking at as far as power outages. I know that those have been filtering in through the evening here and into the early morning hours. Let's see. I'm going to start with our southern parishes and work my way northward. As far as Wynn Parish here, we do have, let's see, Wynn Parish is over 2,000 customers are out of power. Looks like Grant Parish, not too many power outages there, about 67. We have over 200 outages in LaSalle. We do have only about 10 people out in Catahoula, so that's good news. Concordia, over 800 people out of power. Up into Catahoula, we're seeing 10. So again, let's see, I already read that one off. We have Tensom, not very many outages there. Franklin, about 80 people. Let's see, Richland Parish, about 80 people. But the higher numbers of outages, at least at this time, are coming in from Caldwell Parish, over 1,300 without power there. In Ouachita Parish, we're now up to 3,300 people without power. So Ouachita Parish right now actually has the highest amount of power outages in our area. So starting to see these trickle in, generally not seeing this, no reports at least widespread power outages in southern Arkansas yet. But again, power is starting to go out as some of these trees get knocked over. You know, we've had a lot of rainfall today too, kind of has loosened up the soil here, and it's not going to take much of the wind from Delta here to knock some of these trees down. So as you're seeing, fairly impressive wind starting to filter in with this system. Again, I'm keeping this on your screen here, but these are sustained winds that we're seeing across our area. So generally about tropical storm force winds in Natchez, 36-mile-per-hour winds in Monroe. And again, Delta Center continues to push its way northward, again, between Grant and LaSalle parishes. So continue to stay updated with us. We'll probably stay on air here for about an hour or so as the heart of Delta continues to move through our area here. Here's kind of a wider perspective again. Looks like the strongest winds occurring with Delta, at least starting to move into our area. But keep in mind, Delta is weakening fairly rapidly. So we're not expecting winds to really increase in strength as the storm continues to fall apart here. This is about as strong as we're going to get with this, but nonetheless, certainly something that we do not need. So want to emphasize too, if you don't have to be out and about tonight, please just stay home. You know, we have a lot of strong winds outside. It sounds like, you know, for losing power, maybe trees are coming down, and folks just need to stay inside. We have a lot of water on the roadways as well, with very heavy rainfall amounts that have been coming down through the course of the last day or so even. A lot of the rain was starting before Delta moved through our area. So again, a few folks, I know it's late Friday night into Saturday. Nobody really needs to be out anyway. Hopefully everybody's at home staying safe and just keeping updated with the latest as the strongest winds continue to move through our area here. Again, not dealing with hurricane force winds as the system has weakened quite rapidly, but nonetheless, fairly impressive readings that we're starting to see here as the center of Delta gets closer to our area. Here's another look at a live storm tracker Doppler radar again in addition to that very strong wind that we're seeing across our area. We're seeing heavy rainfall amounts too, especially focused from Washita to Caldwell to Richland to Franklin parishes, spanning a little bit westward too, even into Lincoln Parish at this time. And all in all, though, light to moderate rainfall occurring for everybody else. We did just have another little power flicker here in the West Monroe studio. So it's getting breezy out there, folks, and I know a lot of folks are seeing some pretty breezy conditions out there. So let's kind of back this up again. I'm going to start over and just kind of go through this sequence here and there, and we're just going to show you guys what is going on, at least at this time. Let's get another close look here at our sustained winds. Remember, these are sustained winds, not the gusts that we're getting. So we are seeing 30-mile-per-hour winds here in the Twin Cities, and those gusts up to 50 at times. So we did mention that this was a possibility as the winds from Delta continue to move their way north and east, seeing 31-mile-per-hour winds here in Monroe, at least at this time. And again, still holding on to tropical storm force winds in Natchez. So again, fairly breezy, especially across Grant, LaSalle, Caldwell. It looks like Franklin, Catahoula, Concordia, parts of Tensas, maybe even close to Madison and even Richland parishes, even parts of Washita Parish too. You can see some of those stronger winds really starting to move into this area. And this has generally been the area of focus that we've been having those tropical storm warnings through the course of the day today. Notice a lot of our northwestern locations, while they're still getting some rain and some breezy conditions, not seeing all too much in the way of activity. So again, this will continue to push northward through the next few hours or so. And generally, we should continue to see a weakening trend of this activity as it continues to push through. So we're going to just stay online with you at least until about 1, I would say, at this time. Just because some of the strongest winds are moving through our area, and we'll also continue to keep you updated online as well. We have 3,600 customers without power now in Washita Parish. We have 1,300, close to 1,400 customers out of power now in Caldwell Parish, and now we are over 2,000 in Wynn. So again, it seems like those three parishes, Wynn, Caldwell, and Washita Parish, seem to be the ones with the highest power outage rates. Not surprising, considering that, you know, these are similar areas that were affected by Laura barely 2 months ago. So, you know, infrastructure's weak, trees are weak. It's not going to take too much to, apparently bring that power down here across our area as these winds continue to get through. Good news is, though, we're not seeing the same winds that we were seeing with Laura. They are weaker, but nonetheless, we've been through a lot this year, folks, and this is the absolute last thing that we really needed to deal with this year as strong winds and heavy rainfall continue. So yeah, we're still holding at 31-mile-per-hour winds here in Monroe, and I'm going to skip over here to our wind gust map, kind of give you an idea of what it feels like at times, at least. Remember, wind gusts are winds about 3 seconds or so that are, measured higher than the actual wind that we're seeing. And we're still seeing 53-mile-per-hour wind gusts here in the Twin Cities, 54-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Natchez, 41-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Vicksburg. And we're generally seeing anywhere from about 20 to 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts across southern Arkansas. Even seeing a little bit of wind now whipping down from about Ruston. Your folks are at 37-mile-per-hour winds. Natchitoches is at 38. So again, center getting closer to Grant Parish and LaSalle Parish as well, and it's going to continue to generally track towards the northeast. So again, folks, all the way spanning from about Wynn, Grant, I would say Caldwell, Washita, Morehouse, up into Ashley County, and maybe even Chico County too, could be getting in a little bit of this activity. East West Carroll Parish. You're also having Madison, Richland, Tensas parishes, and Franklin Parish as well. So Catahoula and Concordia parishes too. So again, this is kind of the chunk that we've been of the arc limits that we've been keeping an eye out on for some of those stronger winds as they move through. And at least with the latest update, again, a 53-mile-per-hour wind gust here. So again, I want to emphasize, though, that the system overall is weakening as it has been moving on land. So this is a good sign. This is about as strong as we're going to be dealing with, folks, as it continues to push north and east. So I know a lot of folks this is the last thing that we want to deal with, but generally it's going to be lingering here for the next few hours or so, especially those stronger winds before it really starts to wind down here, and we hopefully will be getting into our generally back into our tropical depression kind of category, at least. I would not be surprised to see if Delta has weakened now to a tropical storm. Again, we weren't expecting hurricane conditions here in the arc limits through the course of the last week or so, generally in the tropical storm force region. And by these gusts, at least these are certainly tropical storm force gusts across a good chunk of the area. So again, we're just going to stay online, or I should say on air, with you all for the next hour or so as the winds continue to move through our area. And I'm joined by meteorologist Lexi Birmingham as well. She's in the studio. We're just going to be kind of hanging out and watching this. We don't have any tornado warnings in effect, which is good. We haven't really been seeing that issue with this system. However, we do have a few flash flood warnings out to account for some of that heavy rain. You might be hearing some of the wind here picking up on my microphone as it's really starting to blow here at the West Monroe studios, and I know, folks, it's picking up across a wide range of the arc limits at this time. Lexi, I see that you're checking in on some of the latest. What are some of your thoughts on this?
Well, it does look like that Delta is still holding at Category 1 hurricane strength at this time, with maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, only 1 mile per wave before becoming a high tropical storm. So we're slowly still seeing that weakening, and it is still moving quite quickly off towards the north-northeast, about 15 miles per hour. Like Brian had mentioned, we really haven't seen any tornado warnings since pretty much this system made landfall, or even into the days prior when we started to see those outer bands. So this is a very good sign. A brief spin up, again, could still be possible, so that's what we're going to be watching for the next couple of hours here as it moves through. But like Brian was mentioning, pretty much the entire time he's been on air, it's all about those winds and those rainfall. Again, this is not a Laura setup, but again, like you are seeing on your screen right now, we are seeing wind gusts up to about 53 miles per hour here in Monroe and about 41 in Vicksburg at this time, with a 54-mile-per-hour wind gust in Natchez at this time. And it does look like we did lose the center out in Alexandria, but that's currently where the center, the circulation of rotation is currently located. So it looks like the winds are going to be the main concern at this time, but of course that definitely that heavier rainfall is going to be a big concern as well. As Brian had mentioned, we do have some flash flood warnings in place as of right now, mostly across our southern parishes, but of course as the night progresses on, those flash flood warnings could very well extend up northward just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and step off screen so you can see this just a little bit better. Again, these are wind gusts. These are not actual winds. But of course, that's definitely what Brian went ahead and popped up the sustained winds for me. So we're seeing about tropical storm force winds in Natchez at the time, which is about 39 miles per hour. Not too far behind is Monroe at about 31, and then 22 in Ruston, 14 in El Dorado. Not quite seeing as much of those breezy conditions up towards the north, because as soon as you get more to the west side of the storm, it does get a little bit what we call drier, which is not as severe. But either way, 14-mile-per-hour winds could still uproot trees, especially with a strong system like this. But again, it's mostly this area under that tropical storm warning that we have been mainly concerned about, with those winds anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour. And of course, those gusts that we've already seen go up above and beyond that 50-mile-per-hour wind gust tropical storm speed. Currently right now looking 22 in Vicksburg and 13 up towards Greenville. So again, we're going to continue to stay on the air for you guys and kind of keep an eye on what's going on. I know Brian has been checking up on the power outages. Are there any updates on that, Brian?
Let me check here real quickly. I'm also going to push another update online as well. I know some folks not getting our signal here, so we'll be pushing another update out shortly on that, just to kind of reflect the current trends. As far as let me reset this here. I'm going to put this on current wind gusts across our area once again, and let's check in with the power outages, at least as we near 12:30 here. Let's see, we are now over 4,000 people without power in Ouachita Parish. We are still holding at about 1,400 in Caldwell, and generally across wind just over 2,000. So these parishes at least are growing the fastest amount of power outages across our area. Some of the areas in the surrounding parishes, such as Grant, LaSalle, Catahoula, Concordia, Franklin, Tensas, Richland parishes, generally under about 100 people. So those areas are not reporting much power loss, at least at this time. But we're seeing the highest concentration of power outages now across Ouachita, Caldwell, and Wynn parishes. So, again, folks, mentioned this earlier. This is certainly not the time to be chasing this. There's really not much to see anyway, other than a ton of rain and wind. So I know it's late at night too. A lot of folks probably not out and about. So, you know, it's just one of those things. Unless you have to be out this late at night, please just stay home and just ride this thing out. Generally, we should not be seeing stronger winds than this. Delta just continues to be eaten by dry air and wind shear. That's off towards our west, and that's a very good thing. Definitely kept this storm from really evolving into something worse than what we could have been seeing here, but nonetheless, we're still dealing with the tropical mess across our area, and people starting to feel the effects of it now that those power outages are starting to roll in.
Let's go ahead and pop up the live storm tracker Doppler radar so people can see the reflectivity on this storm here. So just give me one quick second. I'm going to pop up the storm tracker Doppler radar so everyone can see what we're seeing, at least in the talks of rainfall. So I'm going to get back on screen here. Again, it looks like most of the heavier accumulations at this time across I-20. So if you're traveling on I-20, it's not the best idea right now. Or if you know anyone that's going to be heading along I-20, well, basically, first off, you should probably stay off the roads at this time, especially with those strong winds. It could really mess with your car a little bit and maybe cause you to swerve. But yes, so right now the most moderate and heaviest accumulation is going to be right here in the central Arklamas, including all of Ouachita Parish, all of Caldwell Parish, into Richland and Franklin parishes, and even beginning to see areas up towards Union and Morehouse Parish, and even off towards Lincoln Parish in the Ruston area. Again, we still have a couple of flash flood warnings in place, again, for most of the southern parishes of the Arklamas, including Catahoula, Concordia, LaSalle, Caldwell, I'm going to say 75% of Wynn, and then, of course, all of Grant Parish, and that does extend outward towards the Natchitoches area and along Interstate 49. It does not include the Shreveport area or the Monroe area, but it does include Columbia as well. And, I mean, we've already seen some overpassing rainfall totals that we were expecting, especially across the southeastern parishes, which, again, is right along and to the east of that center of circulation, where we were expecting most of this rainfall and the strongest winds to accumulate, and then eventually as it moved north, it will kind of drag those with it. So With that being said, again, here's what we're currently seeing across the Arkansas. Even South Arkansas getting in on some showers at this time, from El Dorado all the way up to Pine Bluff and even off towards Greenville. You could just hear the wind roaring outside of the station right now. And again, this is not a LoRa setup, but again, even winds up to 30, even 20 miles per hour could still cause wind damage anywhere from uprooted trees or downed power lines. And again, if there are any downed power lines, again, should be outside at this time, but you want to stay away at those. You need to act like they're alive and they still have electricity running through them. So we'll continue to keep you updated on the power outages and everything. So far, it's not looking as bad. What we do know, a few folks across the Arkansas are starting to slowly lose power as we speak. No word yet on any wind damage. I have been checking in with the National Weather Service in Shreveport and in Jackson because we're covered by both National Weather Services. We're kind of in the middle of where they overlap here. So I haven't really seen too many wind damages or trees blocking the roads or power lines down. But again, that's something we'll definitely be keeping an eye on for sure. So we'll go ahead and step off screen, and I'm going to go ahead and pop back up the wind gusts to see if we are seeing anything different now. Now, it looks like those wind gusts are still remaining rather strong. A 41-mile-per-hour wind gust in Vicksburg, 54 in Natchez, and 53 here in Monroe. And again, there's that center of circulation right around Alexandria. And like we were mentioning, it's around and just to the east of that circulation where we were anticipating most of the heavier tropical storm-like conditions. And again, that's where most of the tropical storm warnings were issued across the Arkansas yesterday afternoon and into today. And also keep in mind, we do have a flash flood watch across the board except for Ouachita and Columbia counties in Arkansas, and that will continue into Saturday afternoon, or it might get extended just depending on the timing of the storm and how much rainfall is still accumulating by the time we reach the more earlier morning hours of Saturday. So it looks like we did get a small little update here. We're now up to a 23-mile-per-hour wind gust in El Dorado, 38 in Ruston and Natchitoches, still at about 53 here in Monroe. Let's go ahead and zoom out once again to kind of get a little bit more of a broader area across our region here. Not looking too bad in Jackson, but still a little breezy out there. 31-mile-per-hour wind gusts, 40 in Lake Charles and 34 in New Orleans. And again, they're most likely starting to see a little bit of a let up from the storm now that it's beginning to move up towards the north. Of course, over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 hours, of course, they've been dealing with the gustier winds and the heavier rainfall as Delta started to make landfall, which again did make landfall around 6 to 7 o'clock early on this evening. We'll go ahead and back up one more time, take a look at the winds across our region as well. 31-mile-per-hour winds in Monroe, Lake Charles, and 21 down in New Orleans. Again, there's that center of circulation, and it's the east side that we're anticipating more of that tropical storm-like conditions. Still not looking too bad in Shreveport because, again, they're on the west side, which we call the dry side, basically the little more lack of a better word, the calmer side. But either way, heavy rainfall and gustier winds could be expected there as well. Let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at the winds right here in the Arkansas. 31 here in Monroe, 17 up towards Monticello, and 13 in Greenville. Again, haven't been seeing too many changes with our winds. We're still seeing about a tropical storm force wind across Natchez and into Natchitoches as well. And again, it's these winds that have the chance of uprooting trees and causing those power outages. So just make sure that you are tuning in with us. Again, we're continuing to update you guys on Facebook and on myarkansas.com. And of course, we're going to stay on air as long as we need, especially since right now it looks like that center of circulation could be moving in anytime soon.
Yeah, I just want to discuss some of these wind reports that we're getting and some of the rain totals. Close to 10 inches of rain have been reported by the National Weather Service. This was closer to 11 o'clock this evening. So keep in mind, rain has continued to fall across these areas. This is why we do have those flash flood warnings in effect. Looks like we did have a report around 11 o'clock of close to 10 inches of rain in Catahoula National Forest and Grant Parish. LaSalle Parish was reporting over 8 inches of rain, closer to 11:30. Wynn Parish, over half a foot of rain. So torrential rainfall totals have been observed, especially across our southern and easternmost parishes at this time, thanks to some of those heavy rains. Generally across The ArcLMS, though, we're seeing anywhere from about 1 to 3, where rain has been falling through much of the day today. So just some areas that have been training over and been seeing those very heavy rainfall amounts. I want to talk about some of the highest wind reports, at least, again, closer to the 11 o'clock hour. And this will put into perspective, at least, why we're seeing these winds at least hopping out as intense as they are now. Just closer to the 11 o'clock hour, we were getting a 51-mile-per-hour wind report in Wynn Parish. Grant Parish was up to 35 mile per hour at the time, and this was when Ouachita Parish was seeing 30 mile per hour winds. So if I want to at least provide some consolidating news, should not be seeing these winds getting stronger from where they're at. I know, again, a lot of people dealing with, you know, memories from Laura and just reviewing some familiar sights and sounds and everything. But I just want to emphasize that this is about as strong as it's going to get. We should start to see this storm weakening, the winds gradually coming down through the next few hours. So again, folks, just the best thing to do in this situation is just to ride this out and, you know, be safe. You know, I know folks live around a lot of trees here too. Hopefully you were able to take the necessary precautions to protect you and your property from those trees if possible. I know that sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds, but you know, that's for those wondering, you know, just remember, treat this as if this is like a tornado warning. If you're wondering how to shelter from this, if you're hearing those stronger winds, you know, getting into an interior portion or an interior room away from those windows and putting as many walls between you as the outside as possible is your best defense to, you know, if you're worried about a tree coming through or something like that. So it's the best advice that we can offer folks is, you know, excuse me, just treat this like a situation that, you know, a possible tornado is coming towards you. I'm not saying that there is one, but, you know, some of these wind gusts, especially the higher ones that we've been seeing closer to the 50-mile-per-hour range, that's severe thunderstorm criteria. So, you know, it's not something that we haven't seen across our area, something that we certainly don't see as far as tropical activity, especially with the second one of this year moving through our area. But, you know, it's one of those things, if I know some people have been asking, how do I prepare for this? Treat this as if, you know, it's a tornado situation, and just try to protect yourself as much as possible by taking those tornado safety precautions.
And I'd also like to reiterate, it's probably 3, because we had Cristobal back in June, remember that?
Right.
It was the much weaker of the 3, but yeah, we did have Cristobal at the beginning of June. That only moved through as a tropical depression at this time. So we're almost at about, we're just past 12:30 here, early Saturday morning. And, of course, in about 30 minutes, the new intermediate advisory from the National Weather Service is going to come out. So most likely we will see Delta be downgraded to a tropical storm. But like Brian was saying, I don't think we're going to see any more increase with our winds because, again, with tropical systems, they prefer warm waters and low shear. And as soon as they move inland, they interact with friction. They interact with a little bit more shear. They don't have that warm water to kind of feed them, so they decide to weaken. So we're actually in a relatively good position in the ways of a weakening tropical system. Now, again, with that being said, a tropical storm is still a strong tropical system. It doesn't matter if it's still a Category 1 hurricane or even a tropical depression. What we're emphasizing is that they're well known for bringing periods of heavy rainfall, and like Brian was mentioning, some areas have already seen 10 inches of rain, and of course we've seen the winds pick up and also those wind gusts that could cause, you know, wind damage across the ArcLMS. So no new update with our winds across the ArcLMS, but if you're just now tuning in, we're going to continue to repeat this information just because, you know, folks tune in at different times. So if you're still tuning in with us, you know, just bear with us. We want to get this information out to as many new viewers that tune in at this time as we can. So right now here in Monroe, we're seeing 31-mile-per-hour winds. In Ruston, about 22, and about 28 in Natchitoches. You see how all these winds are kind of curling around Alexandria? That's the center of circulation with Delta that's currently located pretty much over Alexandria at this time. It is still anticipated to make a north-northeast trend, and I believe it's still moving at about 15 miles per hour at this time, so that's relatively quick. This is not, you know, Hurricane Sally that's sat along the Alabama and the Florida coast at only 2 miles per hour, so that's kind of a little bit of a good thing, but either way, heavy rainfall, damaging winds are still possible throughout the night. We got a 39-mile-per-hour wind in Natchez, which is just around tropical storm strength, and we have a 24-mile-per-hour wind in Vicksburg. I'm going to go ahead and forward this just a little bit. We'll zoom out and take a look at what we're seeing across our region here. Again, it did make landfall as a Category 2 hurricane early on this evening between 6 and 7 o'clock, right around, I believe it was Creole, Louisiana, if I saw correctly. We're seeing about 31-mile-per-hour winds in Lake Charles and 21 in New Orleans. Now, at this time, I think the southern Louisiana coast is almost pretty much wrapping up on their rainfall, but as you can see, they are still seeing some of those breezy winds at this time. Now let's go ahead and switch to those wind gusts. Again, still seeing some strong wind gusts across the Arklamas. Kind of hard to see, so we'll go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. A 53-mile-per-hour wind gust in Monroe, still seeing about 54 in Natchez, and we can hear it on the roof of our station here. It's just roaring and howling as we speak. 28-mile-per-hour wind gust in Greenville, again following that counterclockwise rotation. Looks like we lost our sensors in Shreveport and Texarkana, so maybe those wind gusts are beginning to pick up just a little bit. But of course, we're still seeing about tropical depression to tropical storm like wind gusts from Natchitoches and into Ruston at this time. 23-mile-per-hour wind in El Dorado. So again, it was mostly, again, we've been talking about this last couple of days. It was around into the east of the circulation that we felt like was going to have more of those tropical storm-like conditions. Not to say that the rest of the Arklamas was going to be completely out of the woods, but that's pretty normal with these tropical systems. If you're going to be on that east side of the storm, that's probably where you're going to see most of the heavier rainfall and the gustier winds. So that's why most of those tropical storm warnings were issued across the southern and eastern half of northern Louisiana. Luckily, we didn't see them get issued up towards South Arkansas, but as you can see, they're still seeing some gusty winds at this time.
We're starting to get a couple damage reports coming in from the Shreveport office, the National Weather Service Shreveport office. At least it looks like out of LaSalle Parish. Law enforcement is reporting some trees and power lines down near the intersection of Highway 127 and, excuse me if I butcher this, I believe it's Moffett Road. But in that general vicinity, this is some of the first few reports that we're getting. So winds are strong enough to bring trees down, folks. Again, we're just kind of right on that borderline of, you know, weak tropical storm kind of, or I shouldn't say weak tropical storm. Generally, we're kind of right in the middle of that.
I'd say definitely strong tropical storm at this time, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it's one of those things that we just need to be paying attention to. Again, I know this is kind of coming in later in the overnight hours into the early morning hours. Thankfully, not a lot of people are going to be out, but just wanted to report that trees are starting to come down across parts of the Arklamas.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. And that's most likely going to continue throughout the rest of the night. We'll continue to get these reports of down power lines and down trees. And we'll be sure to read you guys those reports. And, of course, we'll keep you updated on those power outages, which, again, we know that a few folks, especially here in Ouachita Parish, are slowly beginning to see either their power flicker or their power starting to go out. Like we said, though, not a Hurricane Laura setup. Yes, we know that it was only about 6 weeks ago, and some of us are still trying to recover from that. But either way, you know, we're going to be okay. The power is going to come back on. We're going to be just fine because, again, the position of this storm is a little bit different from what Laura was. If I remember, and again, Brian and Jared were here, the center of circulation is more off towards the east, so we mostly got that east side of the storm, which, again, like we were mentioning, is a little bit more of a what we call the wet side, basically, where you're going to find most of that heavier rainfall and those gustier winds. So, again, here's a look at those wind gusts. So far, the strongest wind gust at this time is in Natchez with a 54-mile-per-hour wind gust and 53 miles per hour in Monroe. Not too far behind, we'll see 41-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Vicksburg and 38 in Natchitoches. So again, like Brian was mentioning, really no need to be out on the roads, especially with these winds that could cause your car to wobble while you're driving along. So again, if you're traveling, you need to get off the roads, like shelter under a gas station or a parking lot until this thing passes. We don't want anyone to be injured out on the roads.
Yeah, just kind of an update here on some of the power loss. We're approaching now 5,000 customers in Ouachita Parish without power. Generally, Wynn and Caldwell parishes are holding at their, at least their current numbers. We're about 1,500 in Caldwell Parish. Wynn Parish is over 2,000 still. And just to keep in mind, a lot of the surrounding parishes, for example, like Grant, LaSalle, Catahoula, Concordia, Richland, Franklin, Tensaw, Madison, folks are generally reporting under 100 outages, at least at this time. So we're going to continue to update this. However, our Entergy outage app that we have here is becoming more and more colorful as we speak, and that's not something that we want to see, especially that folks just got their power back, you know, just a few months ago. We've been through, you know, losing power for multiple days, and this is the last thing that people want to see yet again as it moves through. Good news is, though, we're not seeing widespread power outages. Want to just put into perspective that, you know, with Laura, we were seeing 20, 30,000 people in Ouachita Parish without power. At least right now, we're just up to about 5. So nonetheless, for those who are losing power, it's not fun for anybody. But thankfully, we did see some crews out and about today as in the form of bucket trucks and emergency relief. Folks are ready to help us once this system moves through our area. So even though Delta continues to rapidly weaken here, it's still packing quite a bit of punch across our area as winds gusting at times to nearly 60 miles per hour. And again, it's just problematic considering that we've had really high amounts of rain through our area through not only the course of today, but even going back to yesterday, did kind of help to loosen up those soils here, and some of those trees are weak just from Laura. So again, it's not going to take too much for them to come down, but I want to emphasize, though, this is not going to be a widespread event like Laura. So, and as meteorologist Lexi Birmingham mentioned as well, you know, it's just one of those things that we just need to pay attention to, and you know, some folks are going to have to deal with some of that tree damage and power outages as this storm moves through. So looks like the area of heaviest rainfall, at least right now, according to our live storm tracker Doppler radar, is generally focused across the central portions of our area, at least at this time. You can see a big swath of heavier rainfall as we kind of move into Ouachita Parish. Looks like Richland Parish and even down into Franklin and Caldwell parishes generally are seeing some of those heavier pockets of rainfall. So again, rain starting to wrap up actually across some of our southern parishes, which is encouraging news to see as some of that drier air starts to work into our area at this time. We haven't really seen too much off towards the northwest. So again, those folks that are in the flash flood warning that you're seeing on your screen, this does go until 3:15 in the morning, I guess. We are in the morning now at this time. So over the next few hours, we're starting to see those rain rates coming down. This should aid in helping to reduce some of that flash flooding potential. But again, if you have to be out and about through the next few hours or so, remember, do not try to drive through any of those flooded roadways. Turn around. Do not drown. It's dark. It's very windy. Your visibility is going to be reduced at times. But folks, just stay home if you can, and just continue to stay updated with the latest radar and with the latest information as this continues to move through our area. Good news is, though, Delta is moving fairly quickly towards the north and east. So it's going to come in here and be gone as quickly as it came in. So that's encouraging news. We're not going to be dealing with this for relatively speaking, a long time. Generally, most of the impacts should be out of our area here shortly. So I want to go over the satellite imagery again and just show you what the wind shear and the drier air in the upper levels of the atmosphere is really doing to Delta and what it has really been doing here since it's made landfall. I know that this information says the 10 p.m. We're about to get another update here in roughly about 20 minutes or so. That should tell us where Delta stands ultimately as we head into the 1 o'clock hour. We'll likely turn you back over to your regularly scheduled programming as well. We'll continue to keep updates online, and we'll do another update probably closer to 2 o'clock as the system moves through. But until then, just want to show you this, and this is our infrared satellite imagery. This doesn't even look like a tropical system anymore. It really didn't look like it earlier, and it is absolutely falling apart. Regardless, though, we're still seeing those gusty winds, so this is incredibly encouraging news to see from a meteorological standpoint, to just see this system being sheared apart here as it moves through our area. So that's good news. Eventually, this activity will be winding down sooner rather than later. We just have to get through it in the short term. So very, very encouraging news here. Kind of give you an update on what we're dealing with, our current winds here. Now we're up to 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds here in Monroe. We're seeing 39-mile-per-hour winds in Natchez. 24 in Vicksburg, so starting to come down a little bit along the river parishes here, but we're kind of in a pocket here in the Twin Cities of relatively higher winds as the center of Delta starts to move into Grant and LaSalle parishes at this time. So winds, again, relatively stronger winds from northern locations. What we've been seeing, at least through the last through the day or so continue to move through, but you're noticing that we're not seeing winds increasing in value because the system is cut off from its main, at least food source, for lack of better terms, the Gulf of Mexico, and it will continue to weaken. And as you saw by that satellite image that I just showed, it is dying rather quickly. So with this, the winds should start to come down soon. Looks like we're getting more power starting to flash as well. So just bear with us. We're going to continue to stay on air as long as possible here as these winds really start to move through our area. Really can hear it outside as the center starts to get closer here. But generally, we are reporting 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds here in again in the West Monroe studios, but generally it's just kind of going in and out. So if you're seeing that on your receiving end, we apologize. If you're getting back on air with us, or if you kind of
if you can even see us.
Yeah, we're going to be staying online here and on air as best as possible, but we're taking multiple power hits as the wind's really starting to whip through here.
Yes, and we just recently got a weather report from the National Weather Service in Shreveport. It looks like they are reporting trees down near the intersection of Highway 127 and Bellevue. And Bellevue Road, again, that's located in LaSalle Parish. So just a heads up to those folks, you're most likely going to be waking up to some tree damage around that intersection. Again, we're still dealing with a little bit of a power flick here at the studio. So no word yet if you're just seeing our graphics or you can just hear our audio. But we're going to continue to give you guys a verbal report of what we're currently seeing at this time. Like Brian was saying, those winds right now about tropical storm strength in Natchez and in Monroe, about 39 to 40 miles per hour. Vicksburg and Ruston are seeing winds up to 24 miles per hour. And my goodness, you could just hear the wind roaring across the roof of our studio here. Again, that center of circulation beginning to move north of Alexandria, and will continue to move across the Arklamas throughout the rest of the morning. Let's go ahead and check up on those wind gusts, because that really has me curious a little bit. We'll go ahead and fast forward here. Okay, now we're up to a 56-mile-per-hour wind gust here in Monroe, still about 54 in Natchez. So yeah, I do believe that a 56-mile-per-hour wind gust will cause a little bit of power outages or even power flickers like we're currently seeing here at the NBC 10 Fox 14 studio. So far, Natchez, Natchitoches, excuse me, is seeing about 38-mile-per-hour wind gusts at this time. Again, it looks like we're losing some weather sensors, including Shreveport, Texarkana, and Camden. But I do believe they're not seeing the heavier impacts that we are here in the in Ouachita Parish and areas off towards the east, which again is where that center of circulation is located. So this is the area that we're talking about right here. So there's that circulation with that counterclockwise rotation, basically the direction that most tropical storms and low pressure systems rotate. And again, this is the main area that was issued under that tropical storm warning yesterday afternoon and into early this morning, and of course throughout the day today. So no big surprise that we're seeing these conditions as we speak. And then to top it all off, we're still continuing to see heavier rainfall. Brian was mentioning earlier that some areas have already seen maybe 8 to 10 inches of rainfall already. So basically exceeding what we were expecting, although we did say that the southeastern Arklamas could see about 6 inches plus of rainfall. So again, we're not sure what's going on here at the station, if you can actually see us or if you can only hear us, or if you can only see the graphics here. Go ahead, Brian. Oh, we're back online. Okay, so it looks like we're in good shape now once again. 23 mile per hour wind gusts in Monticello and El Dorado. So again, we're still waiting on what the center circulation is going to do, and we're also waiting on that update that's going to come out at 1 a.m. and will most likely downgrade Delta back to a strong tropical storm. And then it will continue to weaken as it moves off towards the north and east. And it is moving quite quickly at about 15 miles per hour. And let's just say Delta has been one for the record books. And what do I mean by that? We were tied for the record of landfalling tropical systems in the U.S. with the 1916 record at 9. And Delta broke that record today. So we have a new record, 2020, which has been a whirlwind, no pun intended, of a hurricane season so far. And we still have about a month and a half to go. So hopefully, this is one of the last ones we'll see. But don't get your hopes up. Again, so here's taking a look at the wind gusts here. If you're just now tuning in, we were witnessing some power flicks here at the station. So again, this is going to be a lot of information that's going to be repeated while we're on air, just because we want to make sure that everyone that's tuning in at this current time is getting that same information, make sure they're not missing out. And we'll continue to do this throughout the rest of the morning as Delta moves through the Arklamis. So I'm going to go ahead and step off, and we'll go ahead and take a look at our winds once again. Actually, let's go ahead, let's move forward and take a look at the live storm tracker Doppler radar here. Let me go one slide forward. There we go. Again, we still only have 2 flash flood warnings in place, and that includes Grant, Grant, LaSalle, Catahoula, and Concordia parishes. And I do believe, again, it goes until 3:15, so most likely in about 2.5 hours. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Looks like right now the heaviest accumulation of rainfall is stretching across Washita Parish into Franklin, Richland, Caldwell, and now beginning to move up towards southern portions of Union and Morehouse Parish. And the way you can tell is, of course, we're seeing yellows and oranges mixed into that. And we were probably seeing a little bit more heavier than this because our live storm tracker Doppler radar is continuing to send out these pulses. And when these pulses return, it kind of becomes a little bit short on there, so it's not being able to kind of reach out and see what's going on further out from where it's going. So I'm pretty sure we're seeing a little bit more reds on the screen at this time. But you can see off towards our west, looking a little bit lighter in nature, but we do know areas off towards the west have most likely already seen about 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, which is basically what we were expecting. Areas off towards the west of circulation weren't going to be seeing as much of the impacts as we were off towards the eastern half of that circulation.
So I just want to give some of the latest update on our power situation here. Now we're over 7,400 customers out of power in Washita Parish alone. We have 1,500 still out in Caldwell, and we still have 2,000 out in wind. However, starting to see more reports of some of our surrounding parishes gaining a few hundred more people out of power, like close to 600 now out of power in Grant Parish, close to 300 out in LaSalle Parish. Now we're starting to see power outages in Lincoln Parish. They're up to 136. Jackson Parish is now over 300. Also starting to see power outage reports extending now into southern Arkansas. So folks, again, not seeing widespread power outages across the area as compared to Laura, at least not for the moment being, but certainly we're starting to see some of those numbers jumping as people start to lose power, as some of these gustier winds start to move through our area. So again, roof is really rattling here in the West Monroe studios. This point now, it's starting to kind of remind me of what Laura sounded like, but for a much longer period of time. It wasn't one of those things where it kind of came in, but the wind is really howling. And I know I just briefly checked in on social media to see what was going on, and folks said it's really blowing across their house. So again, generally seeing, though, conditions staying under hurricane strength. We've been seeing generally tropical storm force straight line wind, or just sustained winds in general, in addition to some of those higher wind gusts. I believe there was one that was close to 60 miles per hour now here in Washita Parish. So again, very, very windy as the center of Delta gets closer to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're looking at our live storm tracker Doppler radar. Should be getting the new update here in about 7 minutes, and we do believe that this will officially downgrade Hurricane Delta back down to a tropical storm. So again, if you're just now tuning in, we've been on the air for about a good almost a good hour at this time, because the winds started to pick up here in Ouachita Parish, and that center of circulation is moving closer into, I believe it was around Grant and LaSalle parishes. Last time we checked, it was to the north of Alexandria, and that will continue to move off towards the northeast. And this is, again, a very quick moving system at about 15 miles per hour, and it has been a relatively quick moving system since it basically formed out in the eastern Caribbean, and then continued to strengthen in the warm waters of the Caribbean, and then re-strengthening as soon as it moved over the Yucatan Peninsula into the Gulf of Mexico. So again, we're looking at some moderate to heavy rainfall across the central half of the Arklamas, and that does include Ouachita Parish, Caldwell Parish, Franklin, and Richland parishes. And now it looks like we're beginning to see a little bit more of that off towards Union and Morehouse parishes at this time. I'm going to go ahead and back up this so we can take a look at those wind gusts here. Oh, we're now up to a 59-mile-per-hour wind gust, but like Brian was saying, it most likely got up to 60 at some point. Still seeing about a 54-mile-per-hour wind gust in Natchez and 41 in Vicksburg. Wind gusts are slowly picking up towards South Arkansas, right around 20 to 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts, which is just going to be just below, I would even say, tropical depression strength. But a good numbers that we do see here are seeing a tropical storm force wind gust, which is about 39 miles per hour to about 74. But luckily, we haven't seen that hurricane force wind gusts, so that's some good news there. But either way, 30-mile-per-hour wind gust, 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and of course 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts can cause some significant tree damage, wind damage, including uprooted trees, and of course down power lines, which we have been getting reports from the National Weather Service in Shreveport, and I do believe Jackson could be feeding into some of those reports as well.
Yeah, so we're coming up to about 1 o'clock here. As Lexi mentioned, we're going to be getting another update from the National Hurricane Center here, see what exactly we're dealing with regards to the updated strength of Delta here. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys the brief update at about 1 o'clock. Then we're going to send you back to programming for a little bit. We'll probably come back on air around 1:30, give you another update, and we'll probably just do this, give these little updates, 5 to 10 minute updates every half hour until these winds start to come down. So I know folks hearing those winds outside right now, just want to reemphasize that they will not be getting stronger from here, thankfully, as the system continues to weaken, and should rapidly weaken here soon, considering that Delta has no structure left. So again, we're going to continue to keep you updated online as well. We have an article going on myarklamis.com that is feeding fairly frequent updates here as far as winds and where they're located. So again, folks, we just have to ride this out for the next few hours, but we're going to continue to keep you updated on air. We're just not going to be on at least through the remainder of the night. We'll hop on kind of intermittently through the remainder of the night tonight, but we'll be back on at 1:30 following the 1 o'clock update that we're about to receive here from the National Hurricane Center. So again, folks, just want to reemphasize, if you do not have to be out and about tonight, please do not go anywhere. You're not going to see anything. I don't know what you're really looking for anyway, but if you're looking for damage or something like that, just best advice is to just leave that alone and just let this storm pass. Again, it's just going to be a messy night, and even into Saturday morning.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Brian. Just wait until the morning. Wait until there's a little bit more daylight out to go and survey damage. And, of course, wait until those winds and the rainfall die down as well. And right now we're looking at our current winds, and they're about tropical storm force in some areas, including Natchez and Monroe. Ruston and Vicksburg are seeing 24-mile-per-hour winds, and Greenville seeing about 22. Off towards our west, again, that's where we're seeing more of those weaker winds, again, on the west side of the storm. So seeing a 17-mile-per-hour wind in Shreveport, 10 in Texarkana, and 9, of course, in Camden. And this thing will continue to weaken. Again, tropical systems favor more of those warmer waters and low wind shear. And then as soon as it moves on land, it starts to interact with some friction, which is why it weakens so quickly. And also, it was starting to feed in on some dry air and also some wind shear. So that's why it really began to kind of lose its formation as it was making landfall on the Louisiana coast. So this thing was really falling apart, but it still held on to its strength. Did make landfall as a Category 2 around Creole, Louisiana. And those areas, have already been impacted by Hurricane Laura. I do believe that they're still seeing some very life-threatening storm surges out there, and of course some flooding conditions, and they're still seeing some breezy winds at this time. So with the update here, we do have that center circulation again right around and just to the north of Alexandria, and it's this area of circulation that we're going to be watching closely, especially on the east side, where we could see more of those stronger tropical-like storm conditions, including those winds and those heavy wind gusts, and of course that heavier rainfall for sure.
Do you want me to pop up? I'll pop up the satellite imagery here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Outlines if you want to share with our viewers the latest update on Delta here.
All right, so we now officially have the 1 a.m. update for now Tropical Storm Delta. And like we were mentioning, it's not really holding its form anymore because, like we were mentioning, the dry air, the shear, and of course the friction from the land. Tropical systems prefer nice warm waters and low shear. So it is falling apart, but it is holding tropical storm strength with maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour and still moving quite quickly off towards the north-northeast at about 15 miles per hour. But even despite that speed, we're still going to be in for a little bit of a long night with those gusty winds and, of course, that heavier rainfall, which, again, we will be continuing to stay here and keep you guys updated on that on air. Online, Facebook, myarclimist.com. So you'll have multiple ways of receiving this information throughout the rest of the night. And again, we're taking a look at those winds, 36 miles per hour in Monroe and 39 inches, very close to tropical storm strength, and about 24 mile per hour winds in Vicksburg. Again, there's that center of circulation just outside of our viewing area and just to the north of Alexandria. So just buckle tight, everybody. We're going to be here to keep you guys updated on the latest information. Do you want to give them an update on the power outages, or do you have any latest updates?
We'll kind of send this one little final thing as winds are starting to come down here. We'll hop back on air around 1:30 to give everybody another update. We're also going to do another update online. So if you're wanting another update, we're going to do another one of those online as well. But we're going to hop off of air here, but I will leave with the note with the latest power outages that we are seeing across our area. Again, now we are up to 9,100 people without power in Ouachita Parish. We are still holding at 1,500 in Caldwell and just over 2,000 in Wynn. So, yeah, no, those seem to be the at least most affected parishes at the time. Generally, most folks are reporting anywhere from about 500 or less across pretty much every parish in our viewing area in the Arclimist. Also starting to see some power outages being reported in Union County in southern Arkansas. So, yeah, no, this is about as bad as it's going to get, folks. We mentioned that those winds, they sound strong, they sound menacing outside right now, but we want to emphasize it is getting better here, and we're starting to see these coming down at least somewhat as the center continues to kind of spin itself out across the Arclimist. So, going to be giving you guys another update at 1:30. Make sure you tune back into NBC 10 and Fox 14 at 1:30. We'll be right back on air. Probably provide about another 5 to 10 minute update on what's going on across the area. We should see improvement across our area during that time, although very gradual here. And again, we're going to push out another update here on myarclimist.com. And if you want another update, make sure to hop on online and check it out there. Thank you for tuning in for the last hour or so, and we'll be back at 1:30. Thank you for watching.